The relentless sun beat down on the East African savanna, baking the earth to a dusty ochre. Dr. Imani Caleb, seasoned by years under this sky, felt its familiar weight as she drove her battered Land Rover into the newly designated remote sector of the conservancy. But beneath the heat and the vast expanse, an unnerving silence draped over the land. The air, usually alive with the symphony of chirping insects, distant bird calls, or the rustle of hidden creatures, was oppressively still. It wasn't the quiet of peace, but the quiet of absence, a profound, unnatural stillness that raised the fine hairs on her arms. Her uneasiness deepened with every mile. Small prey animals, typically skittish and alert, seemed oddly listless. A herd of impala, usually bolting at the first hint of her vehicle, stood grazing with a disconcerting docility, their eyes glazed, their instinct for self-preservation dulled. A lone zebra, disoriented, ambled aimlessly, ignoring the telltale scent of a predator that would normally send it into a panicked flight. This was not the vibrant, untamed wild she knew. Something had muted its pulse. Pushing deeper, Imani navigated towards a critical watering hole, a lifeblood nexus for all creatures. It was here, half buried in the parched earth near the water's edge, that she spotted them, a series of peculiar dark metallic markers. Smooth and sleek, unlike any geological survey markers or research equipment she'd ever encountered in sanctioned studies, they seemed alien, stark against the natural landscape. Her professional curiosity warred with a growing sense of dread. As she examined the first marker, a low guttural rumble vibrated through the ground. Her head snapped up. There, partially obscured by tall savanna grass, was Zola, a magnificent lioness, her golden eyes fixed on Imani. Zola was known for her fiercely protective nature, but today her vigilance transcended typical maternal instinct. She moved with an almost strategic grace around her three cubs, her body language radiating a profound, calculated protectiveness, far beyond mere aggression. Zola's cubs, however, were another source of profound concern. Despite their mother's formidable guardianship, their usual playful energy was absent. They lay huddled together, small bundles of fur, their eyes heavy-lidded, their movements sluggish and lethargic. Their typical youthful exuberance, the mock fights and chasing games, was gone, replaced by an unsettling stillness. Imani's gaze shifted back to the metallic markers. Drawing her portable thermal imager, she scanned the device over the embedded metal. The screen flickered to life, revealing faint, yet undeniable anomalous energy signatures emanating from within the earth around the markers. These were not inert objects. They were active. Driven by a growing scientific urgency, Imani reached for her camera, intending to document the bizarre findings. But as she brought the lens into focus, a sudden, powerful growl erupted from Zola. It wasn't just a warning. It was intelligent, deliberate, a command. The lioness, now fully visible, fixed Imani with an intense, knowing gaze, a stare that seemed to pierce through her, demanding understanding. "Easy, Zola," Imani whispered, her voice low and steady, recognizing the profound warning in the lioness's eyes. She lowered the camera slowly, her heart pounding. "I'm just trying to understand." A powerful, primal gut feeling seized Imani. These metallic intrusions were not natural, nor were they benign. They were an invasive presence directly connected to the bewildering distress of the animals, to Zola's fierce protectiveness, and to the alarming lethargy of her cubs. The pieces clicked into a terrifying mosaic. Despite the clear danger that radiated from Zola and the unnerving energy from the markers, Imani knew she couldn't leave without more information. There was an overwhelming urgency, a moral imperative that superseded personal risk. With practiced discretion, she knelt, her movements slow and deliberate, and collected a small soil sample from directly beside one of the markers, tucking the vial securely into her cargo pocket. "This isn't right," Imani muttered, her mind racing, the metallic taste of fear rising. Something's deeply, terrifyingly wrong here. The dim light of her hurricane lamp cast long, dancing shadows across the rustic walls of Imani's research station. Hunched over a makeshift lab bench, she meticulously worked with her portable spectrometer and reagents, the air thick with the faint scent of chemicals and dust. Her hands, usually steady and precise, trembled slightly as the results of the rudimentary soil sample tests began to resolve on the small screen. The initial readings confirmed her worst fears. The sample contained unusual chemical compounds, complex and synthetic, unequivocally man-made. More alarmingly, the acute toxicity levels flashed red, indicating a potent hazard. This wasn't just pollution, it was deliberate contamination. The unsettling stillness of the savannah, the disoriented animals, it all coalesced into a horrifying picture. The following morning, a grim determination set in. Imani returned to the watering hole, approaching from a new hidden vantage point, binoculars pressed to her eyes. She needed more evidence, needed to understand the full scope of Zola's behavior. What she witnessed chilled her to the bone. Zola, magnificent and watchful, deliberately nudged one of her cubs away from a specific patch of water, a forceful but gentle shove with her snout. The cub whimpered, clearly thirsty, but obeyed its mother's silent command. This wasn't instinctual, it was calculated. Moments later, Zola extended this unprecedented behavior, herding other pride members, even the formidable males, away from these same areas of the water source, her movements purposeful, almost strategic. It was a clear, undeniable demonstration of advanced intelligence, a lioness actively safeguarding her family from an unseen threat. As the sun climbed higher, Imani deployed her lightweight observation drone, its rotors a faint buzz against the vast sky. Guided by her, the drone ascended, its camera sweeping across the savannah. The live feed on her tablet revealed a chilling sight, a widespread, unsettling grid-like pattern of similar metallic markers, extending far beyond the watering hole, stretching across the landscape like a malignant rash. It was systematic, meticulous. This was no accidental spill. This was an organized operation. The drone continued its reconnaissance, tracking the grid as dusk began to paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. Then, a new anomaly appeared on screen. A dark, unmarked SUV, its windows tinted, moved stealthily through a restricted zone, its presence a stark violation of conservancy protocols. It wasn't a ranger vehicle, nor did it bear any official conservancy markings. This was a clandestine operation, executed with precision under the cover of twilight. "That's not a conservancy vehicle," Imani noted, her voice a strained whisper as she zoomed in on the retreating SUV. Her brow furrowed, a cold dread seeping into her bones. Who are these people? And what are they doing? Back at her station, illuminated by the glow of her laptop, she cross-referenced the GPS coordinates of the metallic markers with official geological survey maps. Every database, every archive she could access, yielded nothing. There was no record of any authorized research or extraction projects in that specific, highly sensitive area. The silence of the records screamed louder than any alarm. These operations were unsanctioned, illegal, and covert. Through the drone's lens, an uncanny moment unfolded. Zola, her head lifting, seemed incredibly aware of the drone's presence, her intelligent eyes tracking its movement. Then, with a slow, deliberate turn, she looked directly towards Imani's hidden position. In that intense, knowing gaze, Imani felt an inexplicable connection, almost a silent, desperate plea for help from the intelligent lioness. It transcended the barrier between species, a raw communication of shared urgency. "They're poisoning the land, Zola," Imani whispered to herself, the weight of the discovery heavy on her heart, her gaze fixed on the lioness's image. "And you know it." She knew she was now entangled in something far more dangerous than she could have imagined. The evidence Imani had painstakingly collected filled her laptop screen, a stark and damning indictment. Precise soil analysis reports detailing the foreign toxic chemical compounds, crisp drone footage depicting the sinister grid of metallic markers stretching across the savannah, close-up photos of the cryptic, alien devices themselves, and her meticulously detailed observations of Zola's unprecedented, highly intelligent efforts to protect her pride from the contaminated water. It was a compelling case, irrefutable proof of a coordinated ecological assault. With a heavy heart, Imani finally initiated the satellite call to her immediate supervisor, Ranger Chief Juma. She outlined her findings carefully, clinically, expecting alarm, swift action. Instead, his voice, When it finally responded, was unnervingly calm, dismissive. He attributed the markers to old, forgotten research projects, remnants of some bygone geological survey. His tone was not just unconcerned, it was subtly, chillingly firm. Doctor, Caleb, please stick to your assigned sector, Juma instructed, his voice hardening, each word a cold, deliberate barrier. Those areas are off limits. Your current duties are paramount. The line went dead before Imani could protest, leaving her with a dead receiver and a growing sense of dread. A jolt of horrifying realization shot through Imani. Official channels were not merely slow, they were compromised, or worse, deliberately unwilling to investigate this burgeoning threat. Juma, usually a man of unwavering integrity, had shut her down with a chilling finality. Her blood ran cold. Adding to her agony, Zola's cubs showed worsening symptoms. One of them, the smallest, was exhibiting clear signs of respiratory distress, its little flanks heaving with each shallow breath. The sight ripped at Imani's deepest moral conviction. She was a wildlife veterinarian, sworn to protect these creatures, to alleviate their suffering. Now, that oath clashed violently with the harsh realities of her situation. She knew the protocol intimately. Report, await instruction, document. Anything further, any independent action, could irrevocably ruin her career. Going public could endanger her life. The unseen forces operating in the conservancy were clearly powerful, ruthless. But Zola's eyes, full of a strange knowing and desperate urgency, haunted her. They were not just the eyes of an animal. They were the eyes of a sentient being pleading for help, silently trusting Imani to understand. She couldn't abandon them. I can't let them suffer, Imani resolved, her voice trembling with the weight of her decision, but quickly steeling with unyielding determination. Rules be damned, I must act. The words hung in the oppressive stillness of her hut, a silent declaration of war. Her plan crystallized. She had to retrieve one of those metallic markers. She needed an untouched sample for advanced offsite analysis. Something beyond her rudimentary tests. Something that would provide undeniable, irrefutable proof. This was her only path to expose the truth, no matter the immense personal risk, no matter the unknown entities she might confront. Her hands shook as she loaded her tranquilizer dart rifle. It was a tool meant for animal welfare, for humane intervention, for rescue. Now it felt like her only defense in a potential human confrontation, a grim irony that tightened the knot in her stomach. The weight of the rifle felt heavy, symbolic of the precipice she stood upon. This is a one-way street, she told herself, taking a deep, fortifying breath, bracing for the inevitable, terrifying consequences that lay ahead. The decision was made. There was no turning back. The pre-dawn twilight draped the savannah in shades of deep blue and charcoal, offering the precise cover Imani desperately needed. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she moved stealthily towards the watering hole. The tranquilizer dart rifle gripped firmly in her hand. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant acacia. Armed, focused, yet deeply anxious about the unseen dangers lurking in the shadows, she scanned her surroundings. To her surprise, Zola was already there, alone, a magnificent silhouette against the emerging light. The lioness was not drinking, nor was she resting. Her gaze was fixed, not on Imani, but on the specific metallic marker Imani intended to collect, almost as if anticipating her exact move, a silent guardian waiting. An inexplicable shiver traced Imani's spine. Just as Imani neared the marker, her fingers almost brushing its cold, smooth surface, a sudden, ominous rustle in the dense bushes nearby shattered the quiet. Three figures emerged, cloaked in dark, tactical uniforms, their weapons glinting in the faint light. Agent Reese, his face grim and unyielding, led them, his presence emanating a chilling authority. Hold it right there, Dr. Caleb, Reese commanded, his voice cold and authoritative, cutting through the stillness. His weapon leveled, aimed directly at her. That area is restricted. At that exact, critical moment, Zola erupted. It wasn't a warning growl. It was a deafening primal roar that vibrated through Imani's very bones. The lioness charged, a blur of golden muscle and raw power, but not at Imani, nor directly at the operatives. Instead, with uncanny precision, she strategically cut off Reese's direct path to Imani, positioning herself as an impenetrable barrier. The operatives, hardened as they might have been, were visibly startled, their trained composure fractured, momentarily disoriented by the sudden, aggressive lioness who displayed such uncanny strategic positioning. This wasn't a random animal attack. Zola's movements were calculated, intelligent. Zola used her powerful body to create a physical barrier, her roars echoing the raw fury of a protective mother. This unexpected intervention bought Imani precious, fleeting seconds. Her hands shot out, grasping the metallic marker, wrenching it free from the earth with a grunt. Clutching the object, she scrambled backward, already beginning her retreat toward the concealing dense bush. "She's protecting me," Imani gasped, the words tumbling out in a breathless whisper, her mind struggling to reconcile the impossible with the undeniable reality unfolding before her. This is absolutely impossible. Zola, instead of attacking, maintained a calculated standoff. Her roars continued, coordinating with precise, powerful movements that confused and deterred the agents, forcing them to hold their ground, unable to advance on Imani without directly engaging the enraged lioness. The agents were caught between their target and the unexpected, intelligent fury of the wild. Imani escaped, clutching the retrieved marker, her heart pounding with a mixture of terror and an overwhelming sense of wonder. She now fully comprehended the profound depth of Zola's intelligence, her loyalty, her unprecedented gratitude. The bond was real, forged in shared vulnerability against a common, insidious enemy. "Thank you, Zola," Imani whispered, tears blurring her vision, the words a silent promise, as she disappeared into the dense, concealing bush, the metallic marker a cold, hard truth in her hand. The fight had just begun. You won't believe what happens next. The stakes have never been higher, and Imani's life hangs by a thread. If you're on the edge of your seat, smash that like button, share this story, and subscribe so you don't miss the terrifying conclusion of this unbelievable conspiracy. Working under the shroud of secrecy, her heart a drumbeat against her ribs, Imani painstakingly compiled her findings. The retrieved metallic marker, her detailed soil analysis, the drone footage, Zola's extraordinary behavior, all meticulously packaged. Disconnecting from her local network, she used a secure, encrypted satellite link to anonymously transmit the entire dossier to a trusted network of international conservation scientists she had cultivated over her career. It was a desperate gamble, but her only hope. The news filtered back quickly, faster than she could have anticipated, each update a chilling confirmation of her gravest fears. The marker wasn't just a toxic dispenser, it was a sophisticated piece of equipment. It contained advanced tracking technology, allowing precise monitoring of its location, and a complex bioagent dispersal mechanism. This was no localized pollution. It was a meticulously planned, large-scale corporate conspiracy designed to slowly poison the environment and its inhabitants for reasons yet unknown, but undoubtedly nefarious. Back at headquarters, Director Thorne, already infuriated by Imani's insubordination and now absolutely enraged by the alarming leak that had clearly originated from her, escalated the threat. More operatives were dispatched, their orders clear: contain Dr. Caleb. Imani felt the net tightening. Her communication lines suddenly went dead. No satellite, no shortwave. Her remote station, once her sanctuary, felt compromised, exposed. The quiet hum of her equipment had been replaced by a deafening silence. She was no longer just an unwelcome presence. She was officially being hunted. They're not just poisoning the land, they're silencing anyone who finds out, Imani realized, her voice barely a whisper, a frantic adrenaline surge coursing through her veins. She moved with practiced urgency, snatching essentials for her emergency bag. Water, first aid, a powerful field radio, the tranquilizer rifle loaded and ready. Escape was her only option. Attempting to move through the conservancy, utilizing familiar, secluded game trails, Imani quickly discovered a new, terrifying reality. Strategically placed traps now littered her escape routes. But these weren't typical snares meant for small prey or even large game. These were sophisticated devices, cunningly camouflaged, clearly designed for humans. Tripwires, pressure plates, hidden nets. The landscape had become a deadly labyrinth. Just as despair threatened to consume her, a rustle in the dense foliage ahead made her freeze. To her astonishment, Zola and her pride emerged, moving with an almost unnatural stealth, a heightened sense of awareness. They weren't just moving, they were almost deliberately guiding her, their eyes constantly scanning, their powerful bodies weaving through safe passages. Follow us, Zola seemed to communicate, not with words, but through subtle head movements, a steady, intense eye contact that transcended species. The lioness led Imani away from imminent danger, her cubs trailing close behind, a silent pact forged in mutual peril. Then an impossible sight. As they approached a particularly thick patch of bush, Zola paused. With uncanny precision, she extended a massive paw and gently, deliberately nudged aside a camouflaged tripwire snare, diffusing it without a sound. Another lioness from the pride, equally aware, delicately avoided a pressure plate concealed beneath a fallen branch. They were dismantling human-engineered traps with an understanding that should have been impossible for wild animals. They know, Imani whispered, awestruck, tears stinging her eyes. They know everything about these people and their deadly game. The conspiracy ran deeper than she could ever have imagined, entwined with the very intelligence of the wild itself. Guided by the silent, powerful procession of Zola's pride, Imani moved through the dense, thorny bush, her heart a frantic drumbeat. The lions, with their uncanny sense for human-engineered traps, led her unerringly towards a hidden, makeshift encampment, the disturbing source of the danger. The air grew thick with the metallic tang of disturbed earth and the faint, acrid smell of chemicals. Peering through a curtain of tall grass, Imani's eyes widened in horror. Director Thorne, impeccably dressed even in this wilderness, stood at the heart of the operation. Flanked by Agent Reese and several armed guards, he oversaw what appeared to be a large-scale bioagent dispersal operation. Robotic sprayers hummed, churning out a fine, almost invisible mist that settled over the land with chilling efficiency. Thorne, holding a satellite phone to his ear, spoke in a voice devoid of emotion, each word a hammer blow to Imani's soul. Phase 2 is ready. Eliminate all variables, especially the native species, proving problematic. The full, horrifying scope of the conspiracy crashed down on Imani. This wasn't just pollution, it was a deliberate, targeted environmental cleanup, a systematic culling. The toxic markers were not random. They were part of a phased plan, designed to disorient, sicken, and gradually eliminate key species, making it look like natural decline. All of it, she now understood with sickening clarity, to clear the land for a rare mineral extraction project. Thorne wasn't the mastermind. He was merely a puppet for a global consortium. The animals were not collateral. They were intentional targets, impediments to profit. At that moment, a profound shift occurred. Suddenly, Zola's entire pride, their golden forms emerging from the shadows, were not alone. From the surrounding bush, other animals appeared, as if summoned. A small herd of buffalo, their massive heads lowered in readiness, even a few wiry wild dogs, their eyes gleaming. Together they formed a silent, formidable barrier, a living wall between Imani and Thorne's chilling operation. A surge of righteous fury, tempered by a raw, primal defiance, propelled Imani forward. She stepped out into the open, revealing herself, the metallic marker still clutched in her hand. "This is what you called problematic?" she shouted, her voice ringing across the encampment, cutting through the hum of the machinery. "Nature's fighting back." A tense standoff ensued, the air crackling with unspoken violence. Thorne, his face contorted with shock, and then pure, unadulterated rage, roared orders. "Fire! Fire on her!" But as his men moved, Zola led a strategic, non-lethal charge. The combined animal forces didn't attack to kill. They used their powerful presence, their sheer numbers, their coordinated movements to overwhelm and disorient the operatives without bloodshed. The buffalo stamped, the lions roared, the wild dogs snapped, creating a whirlwind of chaos that forced Thorne's men into a panicked, disorganized retreat. "You can't control the wild, Thorne," Imani screamed, her voice hoarse with triumph, as the operatives were forced to scramble back, their plans crumbling into disarray, their sophisticated machinery abandoned. Thorn, panic etched onto his face, attempted to flee, fumbling for something in his pocket. But Zola, with an almost supernatural intelligence, cut him off. She didn't harm him, didn't even touch him. But her powerful presence, her piercing gaze, her strategic positioning forced him into a desperate corner. As he stumbled, a small satchel containing several crucial data drives slipped from his grasp, tumbling to the dusty earth. Imani seized them, the cold metal a victory in her hand. The bioagent, the deliberate elimination of key species, the natural decline charade, the global consortium, the rare mineral extraction project, it all clicked into place. A monstrous conspiracy finally laid bare. Imani looked at Zola, who gazed back with an intense, knowing stare, a silent pact forged in the heart of the wild. The conspiracy was revealed, but the fight for the savannah had just begun. The echoes of Thorn's frantic retreat faded into the deepening twilight. Imani clutched the data drives, their cold weight a fragile victory. The conspiracy was laid bare. A global consortium, rare minerals, and a bioagent designed to silently erase Africa's vibrant pulse, making a natural decline out of cold, calculated murder. But then, dawn loosened its first pale thread over the savannah, painting the horizon with a promise, a soft golden light. The grasslands seemed to breathe, waking from a single shared dream. The creatures of the wild, no longer disoriented victims, now moved with renewed purpose. Zola gazed at Imani, her eyes holding the ancient wisdom of the land, a silent pact forged in defiance. The lioness, her pride, the buffalo, the wild dogs, they were not just scattered herds, but a unified force, bonded by the very soil beneath their paws. They were hunters, resilient and calculating, their bodies built for endurance, for the long fight ahead. Imani, now an inseparable part of this awakening, understood. The battle for the savannah had just begun, a promise of new hope, but also a stark warning of the dangers that still lurked just below the horizon.